J live from historic downtown Herndon with Flora Cardoni, Deputy Director of Penn Environment, sending you off with a very warm, let's make the world a beautiful and better place. Adam J live from historic downtown Herndon. The utility companies are outside picketing our windows right now. Today, Flora Cardoni, did I get it right?
Yes,
Cardoni from Penn Environment. I almost said environmental. Penn Environment. All right. Deputy Director. I'm a little intimidated. I already talked to you about that. Coming to us all the way from Philadelphia. She took the train, then to Union Station, and then trekked it all the way by Silver Line. We are looking like we really should have really rolled the red carpet out for you if we didn't. We are so blessed that you're here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Today, I want to really peel back the onion on what Penn Environment does and why it matters. How did we meet? I think we talked about this, but how did we meet?
Yes, we met through a series of solar church tours that Penn Environment was hosting, celebrating houses of worship and actually businesses, farms, schools across Pennsylvania that went solar. And one of the churches that we featured on our tour, GreenBrilliance, did the solar.
Oh, we were there. Yeah, no, that was a good one. So GreenBrilliance, we do a lot of commercial work. I know you've done your research before you tracked it down here. But the United Solomon's United out in Pennsylvania, that was a huge one. They are now able, now they had this program before, but with solar, okay, they are now able to provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's called their Power Pack program, by saving through their electric bill. Okay, I think it's close to $0. I think they had paid maybe $7 or something by the time that myself and a few others went down there, and they did a dedication to solar. So it was pretty cool. I did not meet you there, but I indirectly met you through Hannah, and then what was the other gentleman's name?
Farian.
And then they did this PR thing, and it was pretty cool. They looked like it had been like their fifth stop, so they were definitely on a mission to spread the word of solar and just being better for the environment. If I'm going to butcher this again, I'm a little nervous. You tell me. And
you're getting it so far.
Thank you. I had contacted Hannah because she sent this press release and a really bad picture of me, and I just went, let's just do a podcast. I want to see how GreenBrilliance can help, and more so, really get out of the Watts of Wisdom comfort zone, because we do focus on solar a lot, and we're going to be talking about solar today. But I also want to hear really what Penn Environmental's up to, again, how we can help and why this matters to you. So with that said, it's like I'm talking to somebody from the White House. I'm going to be honest with you, because we've tried to get you down here for a while. You eventually got here, but you've been lobbying, doing something for this last couple of weeks. Tell us a little bit about that, and then really just about yourself and really what the mission for Penn Environment is.
Yeah, well, thank you so much again for having me. I'm always excited to talk solar and broader environmental organizing and making the world a better place. So excited to be here. Penn Environment broadly is an environmental advocacy nonprofit. So we work across the state in Pennsylvania, helping people make their voices heard to their elected officials, educating the public, raising visibility for environmental problems and solutions in the media, online, in communities, and then kind of bringing that support and visibility to our elected officials so that we can push the politics forward and win real results in a policy sense for our environment and climate. Ultimately, our mission is to make sure everyone has clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, protected public lands to enjoy, and a safe and livable climate to call home. And of course, renewable energy is a big part of that.
You see why I'm out league, okay? Talk to me about this again, because we've been on the phone a lot. What is this thing that you've been working on recently? Because I'm proud of you, all right? I'm proud of you, but it's not going to be doing anybody justice if I explain it.
Yes. So the reason that we delayed the podcast recording for a little while was because last week Penn Environment hosted our annual Citizen Climate Action Lobby Day. So we recruited more than 300 Pennsylvanians to join us for about 63 meetings with state representatives and state senators so that they could make their voices heard for climate action and specifically policies at the state level to expand clean renewable energy and improve energy efficiency so we can lower harmful air and climate pollution and build a greener and cleaner world.
What came out of that? Like, are you done? Is it
Yes,
over?
it was on Thursday. So the big event is done, which was very exciting. It's one of my favorite days of the year. One, because it's just a huge day of environmental
Sure.
advocacy and we get a lot done. A lot of legislators agree to co-sponsor bills or to talk to leadership about moving them and getting them to the finish line. So, in the work sense, a lot gets accomplished. But from a personal sense, it's so rewarding because there's so many volunteers who join us from various parts of the state who say that they feel less alone. They're more hopeful that a better world is possible. They're so thankful to participate in citizen advocacy with their neighbors and community members. And so that's really my favorite part of the day.
That's awesome. No, and thank you for getting a little personal. I think it's important. It's definitely important. With that said, are you relieved that it's done? I had to ask.
Yes, yeah. I am. It's a lot. It's definitely worth it, but it's a lot of work to make the day run smoothly. So I am happy that the event went smoothly on Thursday, and hopefully things calm down a little bit the next few weeks.
With something like this, so, surprisingly, I have a degree in public relations, communications, and one of the things, which I don't really use, but one of the things that we learned is it's always important to measure the quantitative result. I don't remember the professor, but you're watching this, you hear this, okay? Is there something you measure for, like, future events, lobbying things? I'm really butchering this again, talking to somebody at the White House.
No. And in fact, I like to be outside of government. I'm happy that my role at our environmental nonprofit is to organize people outside and push our elected officials inside to do the right thing.
I love that.
But of course, we have a lot of ways that we measure our progress at Penn Environment. We're pretty results oriented in terms of, as far as nonprofits go. So we'll look at things like number of people who sign up, number of people who attend, the number of meetings we had, the number of legislators who agreed to co-sponsor bills. And of course, more broadly, we'll measure, the work that we do all year long in similar ways.
You must be meeting a lot of people, like cool people, maybe not so cool people, but at the end of the day, do you have any favorites? Like, call them out right now and why they're your favorite. I'm just literally, and this is not in what we talked about. I kind of want to know.
I know I can't really choose favorites. Certainly a lot of our volunteers and members are so awesome. I think some of the people that I enjoy most, though, are the legislators who really speak truth to power, don't compromise their values, even when things get tough, who, are outspoken about the need to transition away from dirty, dangerous fossil fuels, even in a fossil fuel and fracking state like Pennsylvania.
We're going to get into that.
Who are kind of uncompromising and, building a renewable energy future and willing to stand with us and call for the policies that it takes to get there. And so being able to work with those folks, I think, is a big highlight.
Spoken like a politician, no names. I love it. I love it. So, I met two members of your team. I didn't meet you. I met two members of your team, and they were just amazing. With that said, it seemed like they did have a passion for solar. They may not have been dove deep in it. They may not dive deep in it every day. Okay, well, that's not their sole job. Why does Penn Environment really, why is solar one of the main things that they focus on?
Yeah, that's a great question. It all kind of goes back to, and I'll say Penn Environment, of course, as I mentioned, we work on so
many
issues
it.
that
No, we got to keep saying it. When we're going to,
they're public lands, but the area that I've worked on my whole time at Penn Environment has really been focused on combating the climate crisis. Given that it's the kind of existential threat of our time, of course, making sure folks have a livable climate to call home. I think that gets even more and more apparent as we see the impacts of climate change around the world, but also here at home. For example, a couple of weeks ago, Pittsburgh had a devastating storm that was only about 10 or 15 minutes long, but dumped so much water that people were without power for days and days and days.
We actually had to cancel a good amount of our installations in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And I think that's just one example of the truth that is harder and harder to deny, that the impacts of climate change are here and impacting us in Pennsylvania and the mid-Atlantic, all across the country. And, there's extreme examples, right? There's wildfires in Canada right now and the smoke's coming down again,
and a bunch of celebrities complaining that they have to move to their other multi-million-dollar house. Sorry, please keep going.
No, or the hurricanes that devastated a lot of North Carolina and other parts of the country last fall. And so with those impacts so real and the science so clear that those will only get worse without action, I think that Penn Environment has focused a lot of our work on combating the climate crisis. And I don't like to get too doom and gloom with impacts because really there's a lot of good news. The science is very clear. The main thing we need to do to stop the worst impacts of climate change is move away from dirty and dangerous fossil fuels towards clean, renewable energy. We have the technology like solar that's improving all the time and getting cheaper and more affordable and more reliable with solar plus storage. The public is with us. The majority of people, definitely in Pennsylvania, also in the country, even across the political spectrum, do want more clean, renewable energy. And so really the thing that's missing is the political will of our elected officials to actually pass the policies to help expand clean energy in the state. And Penn Environment really sees our role as building that political will.
One of the things that GreenBrilliance does for a solar system sale, okay, is, and it's not a secret. It's not a super secret proposal that spits out for the homeowner to review. But one of these things that the sales representative basically reviews with the homeowner once the homeowner chooses to go solar or before the homeowner chooses to go solar, on that proposal in the middle and then really big at the end. This is how you have reduced our carbon footprint. Mm-hmm. This is technically how many trees you have saved. So I totally see where you're getting at because, I mean, I think if you go too extreme, you go too extreme. But long story short, and I did not believe this, okay, global warming is 100% real. When I say I don't believe this, I mean from ages 0 to, I don't know, probably 16, I did think it was a joke, okay? And as I started to kind of learn about combustion and gases and carbon monoxide and, oh my gosh, like what is going on? Well, people wonder why. This is Northern Virginia, and right now it's about 82, 83 degrees. I'm not a weatherman, but maybe I should be because I can't predict that tomorrow it's going to be 55 because that's what's going on. And it's not summer or it's almost summer regardless. We are in June. I'm not supposed to say dates, but we are in June, okay? So long story short, I see where you're coming. You said something interesting about fracking, and I kind of want to relate this to a conversation that we had last week. I don't exactly remember how this got brought up, but long story short, the oil industry, we started talking about them, okay? We didn't go too in depth, and then in my head, and I didn't tell you this, I am a secret fan. Actually, it's not a secret. I'm a huge fan of Landman, okay? It's not a plug for Landman. I think it's a really, really good written show. And one of the things on Landman, for anyone that doesn't know, it's literally about oil and the oil industry, okay? And the workers in the oil industry. It is knocking on solar. It is knocking on renewable energy as a whole. Basically, there's the entire skit, and I tried to play it and legal wouldn't let me, where basically they're just going on about how saying that it creates jobs, the oil industry creates jobs. The oil industry basically states that solar is too expensive, windmills are too expensive, and anything and everything has oil involved in it by some shape or form, all the way up and down to the lipstick, okay? I waited kind of on purpose because I wanted to really get your opinion on this. It was, and I'll show it to you, but it was a good clip, but as far as truth, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, certainly how our current society is structured, it's powered by fossil fuels. That's just the reality. Sure. There is oil and everything. Increasingly in Pennsylvania, fracking is not just being used for energy, but also for single-use plastics. So it's really a pervasive problem, but it doesn't need to be this way, right? 100 years ago, we would have thought it was crazy that everyone had, computers in their homes, let alone in their pocket, that you can use to look up anything in the world in a moment's notice. People, even a few decades ago would be shocked that most people today don't have a landline phone. Society progresses, technology.
My grandma does. But other than that, that's, yeah.
But most, the fact that most people don't anymore, I think it's just a good example of society progressing. And I think it's absurd that we're relying on 18th century, 19th century energy technologies. For example, fracking, we're shooting high-pressured water, undisclosed chemicals into small crevices in the ground, destabilizing our earth, causing earthquakes and things, polluting our drinking water, polluting our air, making people sick, giving kids cancer, contributing to climate change as methane is expelled at every stage of the process. when we could just be harnessing the power of the sun that never runs out, doesn't pollute, and shows up for free. Like, it's absurd.
Did you hear my little speech at the church? Because church is one of the things that we say at GreenBrilliance, and what I came up with, in all honesty, and everybody kind of critiqued and made it better, was the sun does not stop producing.
Exactly. It's always here.
It's up, it's down, whether through rain, storm, shine, and I can keep going. It rises and sets like clockwork, and it's right there. It's taking care of us.
Exactly. And yes, it's always around us, and especially as storage technology improves, right? We can store solar energy from when the sun's not shining and use it then. I think some of the other talking points of the fossil fuel industry just aren't true anymore. Clean energy is getting cheaper and cheaper. And by megawatt hour, solar, wind is cheaper than traditional fossil fuels, way cheaper than nuclear today. Better for ratepayers. It's faster to build and get online than building a new power plant. And Pennsylvania is where I know the stats for, but there's more jobs in energy efficiency and renewable energy than fossil fuel jobs, even in Pennsylvania today. And the rate of growth of those industries is much faster. And even if that weren't true, I think we should all do what we can to stop the existential threat of climate change that is threatening all of our lives. So, I haven't seen the show, but that's what I might say.
I mean, I might show it to you. I don't know. But to end that, I'd like a job. I mean, solar creates jobs. It's continuing to create jobs. And speaking of that, what we also discussed on the phone was the solar tax credit, the ITC. The ITC, and this is a plug to my tax credit podcast a few episodes back, but it's also extremely important. We're in danger of losing that.
Yes,
that's 30% non-refundable tax credit off of the total price of the solar system. That's huge for really any type of solar client. It's used for businesses. You told me that Penn Environment is really working on trying to not let that happen.
Absolutely.
What are the types of things that you're doing? Is it this huge advocacy campaign? Do you have some mega lawyer I don't know about, or maybe Penn Environment's behind the scenes knowing this isn't going to happen? I don't know.
No mega lawyer, and unfortunately, I hope it doesn't happen. But certainly, we need everyone making their voices heard. I want to just start by saying one of the reasons Penn Environment has been so supportive of clean energy tax credits is that historically they've really been a big driver of helping Americans choose clean energy. People want solar for a variety of reasons. Some want to live their values and get off of gas and fossil fuels and, power their home or business in a clean way. Some want to save money on their utility bills. Some want energy independence. Houses of worship might want to live their values, care for creation. A lot of people, it's the financial bottom line, save money. But regardless of the reason, increasingly more and more Americans do want to go solar. And the main thing holding most people back is just the upfront cost is still pretty high, even though
it's going down, but it's still expensive.
So yes. That 30% tax credit for individuals and business owners and the 30% direct payment for nonprofits and houses of worship without a tax burden who can still take advantage of that is so huge, and being able to let Americans choose clean energy. And so we were so supportive of tax credits getting expanded in the Inflation Reduction Act. We've been doing tours like the one we did at Solomon's to show, Pennsylvanians taking advantage of these clean energy tax credits and why solar is so great. And unfortunately, as you mentioned, they're under threat right now. So a bill passed Congress already that would totally decimate these tax credits and have them expire at the end of this calendar year, which is horrible for our environment and climate. From a business perspective, is bad too. People can't plan for the future.
It's we are weathering the storm no matter what, but yes, okay, we will have to adapt.
Yeah,
you have to adapt in life, adapt or die. But yes,
and so we really want the tax credits to stay in place.
We want the tax credits to stay in place.
Certainly, Penn Environment did a lot of advocacy around expanding those when the bill first passed several years ago. As I said, we've been celebrating, telling stories of clean energy to highlight their efficacy. We released a map actually last month working with a partner group called Evergreen that showed different projects throughout the state of Pennsylvania that had taken advantage of those tax credits to go solar to help show how popular they were. And certainly right now we're doing a lot of advocacy to try to get the tax credits to stay in place, or at least expire instead of at the end of this year, as much pushback
Sure.
as we can.
Sure. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm not a fortune teller. But again, the storm will weather, or we will weather the storm. At the end of the day, solar will go on. Renewable energy will definitely go on. And as you said earlier, the sun does not stop producing, which is kind of cool because that's what we say.
Yeah, it's really true. But if people are wondering, what can you do at home to help right now?
Yes, call to action.
You should call your U.S. senators. Basically, there's members in the U.S. Senate on both sides of the aisle who want these tax credits to stay in place and don't want the extreme rollbacks that pass the U.S. House. So especially if you have a swingy senator, calling is even more important, but call your U.S. senators, ask them to keep clean energy tax credits in place. Hearing from their constituents gives them the motivation or cover that they need to go to bat for this issue among all the other issues being discussed. So I certainly encourage you to call your U.S. senator. At Penn Environment, we're getting calls and emails and things into offices. But certainly if you're listening at home, that is one thing you can do right now. It only takes you a few minutes.
Yeah, only a few minutes. And what is it might take 5 minutes, but it takes 5 minutes to really save solar. Let me rephrase that. To save some of the costs for an ever-growing, amazing solar system, okay, which is drastically getting cheaper day by day. All right. It's sound a little better? Yeah. So it's better? Yeah.
And certainly if you want to call and you're nervous, you can call after hours and leave a voicemail.
I didn't know that. They check the voicemails?
Yeah, they
have it. It's real.
They tally how many people call on different topics. So it really does make a difference. And you can just call, say your name, where you live, that you're constituent, and one reason you care about solar energy.
That's pretty cool.
And ask them to keep clean energy tax credits in place.
We keep saying the website, or at least it's in my head. What is the website?
Yeah, you can find more information about us at pennenvironment.org, or we're at Penn Environment on social media.
There we go. On social media. Flora would not LinkedIn me. Is that what your friend requests me? I think it was pending for a while.
I just don't go on LinkedIn that much because I'm happy with my own job. I know that LinkedIn is a social media tool that a lot of professionals use day to day.
Professional media tool.
I know it really is. I just haven't developed the habit of actually posting on LinkedIn except for when major career things happen. Which that's on me. I really should be on there more.
It's honestly because I was talking to Adele, who's behind the camera right now this morning, and I was just kind of going, look, every morning I do have to I check the LinkedIn. I keep it off until I get to work. It's off, but then I have to check the LinkedIn because there's always something about, well, how can GreenBrilliance help you improve and help us improve in this way? Or we've got an idea for a podcast, or I don't know, I heard Flora's coming on the podcast and we want to watch. When is it out? So I do have to check it. But it does go off in the morning. It does go off at night. And then I try to silence it for the most part in the middle of the day. With that said, you guys obviously clearly do a lot for solar. All right. Now I'm just going to pivot a little bit. Or a lot, okay? The spotlight is really on you. When I went to that website, pennenvironment.org, it was Save the Bees.
We do a lot of work with bees.
Okay, and I don't think this is an illegal thing. I don't think it said anything to do with suing Amazon or anything like that, but you definitely aren't fans of Amazon, okay? I want to hear a little bit more about these bees, why they're important, and really any and every other thing that you guys are talking about. I saw some stuff on Delaware on how much pollution is going into the water that we install there, so kind of would be inappropriate of me to not care about Delaware, okay? Mm-hmm. Talk to me.
Yeah, at Penn Environment, as I mentioned, we work on a ton of campaigns. So advocating for more clean energy like wind and solar, improving energy efficiency, because the cleanest, cheapest energy is energy we don't use in the first place. Those are all important, but certainly we work on a lot of different issues. Saving the bees is one. Our bees are so important as pollinators for our own food and supporting humanity in that way, but also just in terms of larger ecosystems and wildlife. And they're under threat from a lot of things, habitat encroachment, climate change. But one of the things that they're under threat by are neonicotinoids, which are harmful pesticides. Okay. And we've done a lot of work to try to move beyond neonicotinoids, protecting pollinators. And the reason you probably saw an action targeting Amazon is that when we're organizing at Penn Environment, we're trying to look for kind of every level where you can make change.
Okay.
Sometimes that's working on policies at the local level and the state level, and I can give some examples of that. That's a lot of work we do. Sometimes that's litigating under the Clean Air Act and Clean Water Act to protect our members from pollution. And sometimes it's targeting corporations because with enough public pressure, they can make a switch that has a big ripple effect. So I think that in the past we've targeted Amazon and Home Depot and other kind of companies to ask them to stop selling these harmful pesticides on their shelves or online.
Okay, so they're not necessarily bad. They're really expediting the process of hitting these bees pretty hard. Is that? I mean, they don't really come on time anymore. The shipping is not as what it used to be. But is that kind of accurate?
It's a lever for change, right? If they stopped selling them online, it would take a huge amount of them out of the
fair enough
supply stream.
What about the Delaware thing? What do we got going on over there?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of work to clean up the Delaware River. Of course, the Delaware supplies drinking water to a ton of people. A lot of people like to recreate on the Delaware, certainly in Pennsylvania, hiking and fishing and boating, especially in the Delaware Water Gap, and even in the Philadelphia area. And unfortunately, there's too many days that are unsafe for swimming, recreating, even touching the Delaware because it is so polluted. And a big reason for that is that the Philadelphia Water Department is dumping 15 billion gallons. I hope that stat is right. It might be even more.
We're being conservative. It's a huge number. All right.
Untreated stormwater and sewage into the Delaware every year. And they don't need to be doing that. There's a lot of things we can do.
It doesn't seem like why? It doesn't. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We just need to update our sewage system. Part of the problem is that when it rains a lot, which climate change is making Pennsylvania hotter and wetter, so warmer air holds more water, dumps it more quickly, overwhelms our sewage systems, and then everything kind of just overflows into our waterways. So there's green stormwater infrastructure improvements we can make. So we're absorbing stormwater instead of letting it run off and mix with our sewage and overwhelm our pipes. There's technical fixes at the just updating pipe and like hard infrastructure level that many other cities in the country are doing.
Okay.
That we think the water department should do. But really, we just don't think we should be dumping raw sewage into our waterways.
It doesn't make sense. And especially when you're saying a lot of this is manageable, to be honest.
Well, and most of what we work on are things where like the problem is very clear and there's a clear solution that's based on
just nobody's actually
in science and or what other states or cities are doing. So that's a good example.
We walked into my office shortly before this started, and I had, I don't know, what was it, like 15 bottles of, and we're not sponsored by Topo Chico. I just drink it religiously. And I got nervous. I was like, are you against glass? Because you're definitely against plastic. And he said, no, glass is good. Glass is good. What's going on with plastic?
Yeah. Tackling single-use plastics is a big campaign of ours at Penn Environment as well. My colleague Farron, who met at the event, leads that work for us. Basically, it's based on the idea that, you know, we live in a society right now that just is kind of trained to consume and use and throw away stuff at the greatest speed possible. But there really is no way. So using a single-use plastic bag for 5 minutes or something and then throwing it away means that plastic is in our environment forever. Plastic doesn't break down fully. It just breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces of plastic called microplastics that we're ingesting. They're in our food. They're in alpine snow. They're in the ocean. We did a report testing Pennsylvania's waterways for microplastics, found them in every single waterway we tested, including the grade A, most pristine trout streams. That's bad for human health. It's an endocrine disruptor, as among other things. But also these plastic bags are littering our communities, like blowing around, getting stuck in
it's not cool.
bushes. They're choking wildlife when they end up in our waterways. They're in landfills and leaching and clogging them up there. And we just don't need to be using that. Like, we use it for 5 minutes and it's on our planet for millions and millions.
Well, yeah. And what about so we go to the dollar store, get them out. I mean, the dollar store has really, really cool floss and really, really cool, like, little things that you wouldn't have thought. Okay, but they now have, like, it says recycled plastic, like, for their bags. Is that real? Or is that just, it might be an illusion, and it probably is.
Yeah, I mean, the best thing to do is just bring your own bag. And at Penn Environment, we're certainly working to ban single-use plastic bags, municipality by municipality. We've helped about 40 municipalities so far ban plastic bags. Pennsylvania, which is pretty exciting. I think it's about 20% of the population lives in a place with a bag ban now.
Bag ban.
Bag
What happens if
ban.
you get caught with the bag?
It's just that the you can
It's
have
just
a, you can have a bag. It's just that retailers are not supposed to sell them. I usually bring my own bag, which is what I definitely recommend people to do. So it depends on the store. Sometimes there's a problem with how the law is written. There's a loophole that allows those like thicker plastic bags that say they're recyclable or reusable. But most of the time, that's just greenwashing, and people are just
It's not even real.
yeah, you
Well,
put more plastic throwing those away.
It's happened. Yeah, you get it. You feel look. Okay, it is you call it greenwashing. Greenwashing bag bans. I'm starting to feel even shorter in this chair right now. But long story short, what about is we talked about okay, so because I'm gonna bring a bag to the store from now on, and the dollar store bags are illusions. What about paper?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, again, it's better to bring your own bag. And when we're advocating, the best policy actually is to ban plastic and put a fee on paper to incentivize people to bring their own bags. And generally, the retailers like that because they've recouped some cost on the paper bags. But paper is better than plastic, certainly. But we also don't want to become over reliant on paper because we want to let our old trees grow.
So like we're talking like cloth or like I should make a okay. All right. I think Whole Foods
Yeah.
has been doing that for a very, very long time. There's actually a grocery store called Sprouts that
Yeah,
my
it's
son
also
and I there's a Sprouts in Philly. Oh, all right. Well, they just did one in Herndon.
Nice.
It's pretty cool. Were you here in the kitchen earlier when I was talking about? I don't think you were. I was.
Don't think I was.
So for Father's Day, my wife is making Italian subs. So that's how we, when we met, it was just all Italian subs, so Italian food, and I love my wife. But long story short, we went over to Sprouts to get paleo bread for the Italian Sprouts because I eat a ton of carbs, and we talked about this. I just don't have any gluten or anything weird like that because it just clogs me up. I don't like it. So long story short, Sprouts is cool. They did where I'm getting going with this though was cloth bags, or people were just bringing their own cloth bags. I actually even saw an Uber driver. Well, I don't know if he was an Uber driver, but he had one of those Uber delivery bags, and it was one of those big, is that a big green bags? I don't know what it was made out of, but people were bringing in their own bags. Okay, now. If this was 10 years ago when I was in Jersey, I might have laughed, to be honest, because I would always kind of go in Jersey when you go to the supermarket or whatnot, you have to pay for plastic, you have to pay for paper. It's pretty annoying and you get aggravated. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to go there then, So everybody had their own bags. I'm not even doing a rant here, but long story short, I've adapted. I've grown. Still a little intimidated. All right, let's move on from the bags.
Yes. We work on a lot of other things. But
Let's talk about them.
the reason we think about bags is just, nothing we use for 5 minutes should pollute our environment for millions of years. And if we can, do a little bit to get a little less plastic out of the waste stream and out of our own bodies, that seems good.
And so you work on a lot of other things. I know you do. Again, I was on the website. I was on your LinkedIn account as soon as you friended me. I don't know if that's what it's called, friend. You accepted my connection. See, there we go. What are some of the other things that Penn Environment is working on? Okay, I said we're going to get out of solar and we're connected because we're helping the greener pasture. But what are the other things that Penn Environment is working on, and what are you really passionate about? You can mix that in with like maybe even a call to action, not just bags. Like what can people do to help with X and Z and Y and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many issues we work on that I care a lot about. One thing I think was pretty cool is my coworker Stephanie a couple of weeks ago released a new study about wildlife corridors in the state. And that's something we've been working on more and more in the last few years. Basically, wildlife habitats are threatened in a lot of ways. Actually, similar to bees, right? There's fragmentation from development, there's climate change, there's highways. So a lot of our species are being threatened.
Sure.
But also in Pennsylvania, we're like one of the top states for deer vehicle collisions. I don't know if you all have that problem around here.
Knock on wood, not as much, but it does happen, especially where I am in the Great Falls area.
Yeah.
It does, yes.
And a lot of other states, especially in the West, have a lot more wildlife crossings, which could be, an overpass or an underpass on a highway, for example, so animals can cross through. It could be a pollinator garden along the side of highways for pollinators. Those are just a few examples. Those fish ladders, I don't know if you've ever seen them.
No. What's a fish ladder?
Go upstream to kind of connect waterways that have been disconnected.
Oh, okay.
And so in Pennsylvania, we have a ton of open space. We have a ton of great wildlife that's being threatened year to year. And one common sense solution is building wildlife corridors or crossings. And so our team worked with a bipartisan group of legislators at the state level, led by State Rep Mary Jo Daley, who's awesome, to pass a resolution to study wildlife corridors in the state and make a plan. And then my colleague Stephanie just released a report a couple weeks ago about 10 case studies of successful wildlife corridors in the state, which was really fun and kind of feel good of like, oh, here's work that we've done to protect, bears in the State College area or protect fish.
Also maybe lower insurance rates because running into a deer is pretty detrimental. I had a friend, she hit a deer, and this is all the way back in high school, and literally the car was wrecked.
That's horrible.
I mean, and the deer, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, but funding, there's federal policies to help states develop wildlife corridors. So certainly wherever you are, you could ask your member of the U.S. Congress to support that. And I think there's a lot of bipartisan support for that, protecting wildlife. So that's one example. And in general, we do a lot of work to protect our open spaces, letting our oldest trees grow so they can clean our air and take in carbon pollution.
And they're pretty.
They're pretty, right? I like to go hiking.
They're cool.
Just let people enjoy them too, and the wildlife that lives there. We do a lot of other work to clean up our air, mostly by holding industrial polluters accountable. That's where some of our litigation work comes in. Penn Environment actually won the largest Clean Air Act penalty in Pennsylvania history against an illegal polluter last year who was, polluting way above their air permits, making people sick. Because we have members being harmed by that pollution, we could litigate. The settlement money is going back to the community in forms of grants, and the company had to clean up their act a bit. So that's certainly exciting. Doing a lot to clean up our water. The Delaware we talked about, that's just one example. We do a lot of work to get lead out of public school drinking water as well.
That's still happening?
Yep. Unfortunately. In some places, less so. In Pennsylvania, but like a lot of the country, schools are often our oldest building stock.
Sure.
And unfortunately, lead is a moving target that comes from so many places: lead pipes, lead service lines, even the fixture on a water fountain. And for a long time, science, health experts recommended just testing and fixing where you find lead. But we know that lead is really a moving target where you can test one day, not find lead. There could be lead the next day. So today, the best health-based recommendation is just to install lead filtering water fountains and hydration stations in schools, which is not only cheaper than pulling out all the pipes, but also makes sure that kids are, have clean water to drink and aren't getting poisoned by a neurotoxin where they go to school.
My son is literally just finishing kindergarten. I have to do that. I'm going to call the principal. I'm going to ask him about this lead thing.
Important, yeah. So Penn Environment helped to pass a policy in Philly to require the Philadelphia School District to install lead filtering water bottles and hydration stations. They finally just completed the install this month.
That's kind of cool.
Exciting. And we've worked with school districts in Pittsburgh and a few other places to do it voluntarily. So Pittsburgh's also done it. But we have a policy we're working on statewide in Pennsylvania that would mandate all the schools do it, but also provide funding to.
Well, funding, that would be great. But I would assume taxes might be able to help with this a little bit.
It's really just a tiny, really small percentage of the budget of the school districts. But we know that our schools are often underfunded and have competing priorities. So
I'm just thinking that and it's not a good thing. It's a good and it's bad. I live in Loudoun County. We are one of the highest taxed areas in the country. So when I call the school, I'm going to go where the tax is going. I want these lead filtration systems.
And I will say that Penn Environment actually has a partner group called Environment Virginia that does a lot of work in Virginia, including, I'm sure, working to get the lead out. So my coworker Ellie from Environment Virginia probably could tell you where things actually are.
Did you set us up about this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this how this happens? Is this how podcasts kind of really? Yeah.
And to take it back while we're talking about school, sure. I think the last thing I'll mention, again, we work on so many issues, is putting solar on schools to tie it back to solar.
We do a lot of that. Please. Yeah, no, this is good. This is good.
Yeah, well, last year, very excitingly, a legislator named Rep. Liz Fiedler, she's awesome, worked to kind of get together a coalition in Pennsylvania of environmental groups, parents, teachers, like school principals and administrators, labor leaders and union folks, health professionals. She took her colleagues on both sides of the aisle on tours of schools that have found solar. Groups like Penn Environment and many others did a lot of advocating, helping people make their voices heard for this policy, including at our lobby day last year. And the state legislature did pass a Solar for Schools bill in Pennsylvania last year. Super exciting. The first clean energy bill to pass in Pennsylvania in a long time, but created a grant program to help schools go solar again, to kind of get rid of some of that upfront cost that is a barrier. And just, I think, a week or two ago, 73 schools in Pennsylvania were awarded grants to help them go solar, which is so awesome because they can save money on their utility bills, which is the largest expense for schools after staff and faculty. They can do their part to lower carbon emissions and air pollution, and they can teach their students about the benefits of clean energy. So I'm really excited about that program to grow even more in Pennsylvania.
You want a job? You sure? You can come on over? Relocation, little relocation.
Space right now.
I can barely say advocacy, but I'm learning. You're teaching. I think you're teaching all of us. Flora, sincerely, this is a pleasure. I think I did. I told you on the phone, just like any job, people think you work in solar, you show up and everything is green and the grass is green and everything, the sun is up. And look, like any industry, there's an amount of toxin, and what we do daily is really just to try to get rid of that toxin and actually make a difference. And on a personal note, just like the church in Pennsylvania and several projects that we do, I personally want to make a difference. I am very grateful. We, as in GreenBrilliance, are very grateful that you came down here, and we're grateful for all of what you do through Penn Environment. And yeah, honestly, if you wanted a job, I wouldn't hire you. You need to stay where you are and keep making a difference. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Appreciate your work too in the solar industry, and hope folks listening can make a difference in their own lives. I'd encourage you to call your elected officials and ask them to prioritize more solar.
So yeah, to find out more, pennenvironment.org.
Yep.
All right. And I am with Flora Cardoni. I'm saying it right?
Yes.
Flora Cardoni, Deputy Director of Penn Environment, one of the largest environmental groups in the country, truly making a difference. Next up on Watts of Wisdom, Joey Bremberg, CEO of Lux Exteriors, showing behind the scenes of a real GreenBrilliance sale process.